Welcome to histology. There is a certain unease about horns, something old and primal, something that awakens fear deep inside our minds. Yet, in ages past, they signified divinity, power, nature, and forces beyond our control. They stood for something greater. People honored them with genuine awe, revered them, worshipped them. But at some point, they turned into something different. Their image was bent, their meaning reversed. No longer deities but demons, no longer guardians but nightmares. Why did the sacred turn dark? Why did the wild become feared? This is Histology Channel, and today we're exploring one question: why were horned gods demonized? Once honored, they were recast as threats, and their primal power was linked to evil. In many cultures, their symbols were turned into warnings, shaping how we see them now, a reflection of changing beliefs. Throughout most of humanity's past, horns were symbols of power, not evil. They topped gods, signified royalty, and bridged divinity with wild, unbridled nature. Wearing horns set one apart, touched by a force beyond the ordinary, something deep, something ancient. They hinted at primal wonder. These were deities of fertility, of existence and passing, of the woodlands and the unknown. They answered to no city, standing beyond its reach, and for a time they were honored. Among them stood a deeply enigmatic figure, a horned deity depicted in Celtic lore, elusive yet ever-present. He is never shown carrying a weapon, never portrayed on a throne. Instead, he sits cross-legged, holding a torque in one hand and a serpent in the other, surrounded by beasts. His name, Cernunnos, comes from a lone inscription, yet his likeness appears across Celtic lands, always the same: watchful, quiet, not a warlord, but raw, natural power. He does not subdue the wild, he dwells within it. To the Greeks, another horned being roamed on the edge of civilization: Pan, god of shepherds, forests, and desire. With goat legs and animal horns, he was playful yet alarming. His melodies could enchant the gods, but his very presence could strike mortals with sudden terror so profound that his name gave rise to the term panic. He was not evil, but he was untamed, unpredictable. He lived in lonely hills and shadowy caves, places people avoided after dusk. Yet the horned deity's origins stretch even further back. In the Indus Valley ruins, a seal from over 4,000 years ago shows a horned figure in meditation, ringed by animals. Some see him as a precursor to Shiva, others call him Pashupati, the lord of beasts. Unlike Pan's wild mischief or Cernunnos' calm force, this figure sits still and unshaken, perfectly at peace with the living creatures around him. He is neither their ruler nor their quarry. He exists among them, a presence that does not need to dominate nature to hold sway. Beyond these gods themselves, the bull stood as a revered sign of might. In Minoan belief, grand temples displayed images of bull leaping, an animal so respected that it became core to holy rites. In Mesopotamia, rulers identified with the bull's raw energy, seeing in its strength a reflection of divine backing. And in Egypt, the Apis bull was worshipped as an incarnation of the gods, a link between mortal life and the sacred. Even in the Old Testament, the Israelites' veneration of a golden calf shows the bull's once undeniable sacred weight. They were not fiends, nor devils. They were guardians of fertility, protectors of nature, and keepers of life's cycles. They stood at the boundary between humanity and the wild, between order and disorder. They did not belong in man-made halls or sanctuaries, but in forests, fields, and highlands. They were powers that could not be domesticated, and for a time, they were praised. Yet the horns that once signified sovereignty and the divine would become marks of the forsaken. The rejection of horned deities was not accidental. It spanned generations. Their names, images, and sacred emblems were reworked into hideous forms. This shift was pushed by those establishing a new faith structure. Early Christian thinkers, church officials, and monarchs desired unity under one religion. To achieve this, they had to wipe out older beliefs. And for horned gods, rooted too deeply in communal memory, mere forgetting was not enough. They had to inspire dread. The first step was corruption. Horned gods had stood for fertility, the natural world, and untamable powers. But to early Christian doctrine, they symbolized peril, a link to primal cravings and wild instincts. The figures who once blessed the fields were turned into beguilers and tricksters. Early Christian authors such as Tertullian and Augustine insisted that these pagan deities were not just empty idols, but demons, fallen spirits tricking mankind. Over time, this view included nature gods, solidifying the belief that they were seducers of humanity. Then came the reversal of their imagery. Their horns, hooves, and untamed spirit were stripped of holiness and made to represent evil. The clearest case lies in Pan, the Greek nature god. Once a patron of music, merriment, and birth, he was reshaped into the prototype of the devil. His horns and cloven feet, once tied to his role in the wild, became marks of sin. His boundless nature was recast as temptation and disarray. By the Middle Ages, his reshaping was woven into church teachings. The horned, goat-like devil image took root, reinforced through art, sermons, and official decrees. Inquisitors and church authorities directly linked horned gods to witchcraft and devil worship. By the late 15th century, when the Malleus Maleficarum appeared, belief in a horned devil whom witches adored was widespread. That book fanned fears that lingering fertility rites or nature-focused practices were, in truth, satanic rituals. Over time, terror of horned figures lodged in common thought. Europe's horned deities became demons, and those who invoked them were branded witches, sorcerers, or heretics. The horned one, once watching over the woodland, no longer safeguarded the crops. He lured the helpless into gloom. This was more than spiritual transformation. It was a deliberate effort to refashion belief. Horned gods were not merely neglected, they were made into fearsome creatures, and anyone unwilling to dismiss them was labeled a threat to the new faith. Across the ages, horned beings have symbolized more than divine powers. They represented uncontrollable forces. So why did the notion of a horned evil endure so long? It wasn't just organized religion that condemned them. Civilization itself took issue. The main cause of this dread was the wild, the lawless and capricious realm that unsettles human order. In a society craving structure, horned figures stood for what lay beyond control. Even after clerics demonized them, the fear lingered. It never fully died. Krampus, the Christmas monster who punishes naughty children, is one echo of this. His horned, frightening form recalls old fertility spirits and forest dwellers, where the line between benevolent and malevolent is blurred. Like ancient horned gods, Krampus inhabited realms where people dared not go. The wild, brimming with peril and uncertainty. The forest itself gained a reputation for menace. In tales, dark woods are never secure. They mark where the familiar world ends and the wild begins, where our fear of the unknown flourishes. Whether it's glimpsing a horned outline among the trees or dreading unseen threats, the forest has always held a magnetism laced with terror. The dread of untamed nature, of what we cannot rein in, stays a vital part of our psyche, embodied perfectly by the horned shape-bee. In modern times, there's been fresh curiosity about the old horned deities. This is more than a fad. Contemporary pagan paths, Wicca, and other spiritual groups have revived figures like Cernunnos. Why are people seeking these gods again? Maybe after centuries of demonization, we sense their profound power, a force we can't rule, but can respect. Cernunnos, the Celtic horned deity, has found renewed life in present-day practice. Once tied to the wilderness, he's now central to rites that connect humans to the land, the seasons, and life's rhythms. No longer a symbol of menacing energy, he stands for balance and sacred harmony. A growing understanding says nature's might is not inherently wicked. It's simply potent, and our respect for it is reviving. Yet Cernunnos is not alone in this resurgence. Baphomet's image, long tied to dark arts and the devil, has changed as well. Once depicted as purely nefarious, Baphomet now stands for harmony, duality, and elevated insight. With a part human, part goat form, it embodies both male and female, brightness and darkness, virtue and vice. Where once Baphomet was dreaded as a fiend, today it can symbolize unity and the merging of opposites. Horns, once seen as signs of depravity, have again become emblems of power. But we must wonder, have we truly shed our fear or just renamed it? Perhaps we've learned that wild forces should be honored and studied, not dreaded. Maybe horned gods were never evil. Maybe we convinced ourselves they were. If horns once stood for vitality, harvest, and the earth, what does it reveal about us that we turned them into a horror? What does it mean that we twisted these old icons into devils? The gravest offense might not be worshiping these gods, but the question remains, why did we fear them at all?
Thank you for watching Histology channel. Subscribe for more.